I'm Teresa Marie Lennon. I'm a ordained Christo-pagan priestess. I was ordained through the Universal Life Church online because universities usually will not ordain Christo-pagan priestesses. I believe in Jesus and the goddess both, but it's not really necessary to follow any particular dogma or any particular religious path or belong to any particular church in order to improve your self-esteem. I am from a family of addicts, alcoholics, and codependents. There's a lot of denial in my family and addiction and alcoholism. There was a lot of abuse, sexual, physical, and emotional abuse that took place after my mother died when I was 3 years old. And I battled with depression for years. I think at first it was situational, but it became clinical after a while. And that combined with all the abuse left me with a very, very, very low self-esteem. And I've spent many, many years, decades in fact, working on my self-esteem and trying to break the cycle. I've studied Christianity, various forms of shamanism. I followed many Native American belief systems. For a while I was very much into studying about Native Americans and what they believed in and everything. I studied Wicca and Druidry for a while because I was told to go back to my tribal roots, which I'm predominantly Celtic, so I studied Wicca and Druidry. And I've also studied some Buddhism. Like I said, I spent decades trying to break the cycle of abuse. Breaking the cycle is very important to me, and it's very important in life to break the cycle if you've been through a lot of abuse and of all kinds, because people with low self-esteem tend to pass it on to their kids. In order to have good self-esteem, our basic needs must be met for food, shelter, and clothing. It's very hard to feel good about yourself and to have the time and emotional energy to work on building your self-esteem if you're homeless or starving or so on and so forth. It's hard to be happy when you're going without. Constant criticism and or abuse can cause low self-esteem in children. It's not good for children. Children are developing and need to be nurtured and supported. Low self-esteem is feeling unworthy, incompetent, and or inadequate in life. People with low self-esteem tend to talk to themselves constantly in their heads. They usually do not say good things about themselves. They usually do not listen very well because they are thinking what they're going to say next or whatever. But there's a lot of criticism that goes on in people's heads when they have low self-esteem. People with low self-esteem tend to compare themselves to others a lot and can be very competitive. It's not good to be competitive for like men or whatever. Women, a lot of women are way too competitive for the attention of men, and sometimes that competition gets a little vicious. Our self-esteem should not rely on an outside source, and I think that a lot of women are looking to complete themselves through relationships with the opposite sex. Self-esteem manifests itself as conceit or having an inferiority complex, or sometimes both. Sometimes they alternate. People with low self-esteem tend to feel superior to others around them, or inferior to others around them, or alternate between the two. They often wonder if they have actually grown or changed or learned anything. And that's the byproduct of actually doing the work of building your self-esteem and working on yourself and working on your spirituality. Then you don't have to wonder. So people with low self-esteem find themselves lacking and unlovable. They don't find themselves complete. They don't feel lovable. They tend to talk like they just don't feel good about themselves. They beat up on themselves a lot. A lot of times they weatherproof relationships, looking for signs and testing people and setting people up. And usually others fail the test. And the signs usually don't have anything to do with what's really going on. People with low self-esteem tend to have very unrealistic expectations of themselves and others. That's where the conceit comes in, of feeling superior. It isn't good to teach children that they're special, because it sets them up for unrealistic expectations and things like that. There's no need to be special. I actually have a therapist, and my therapist has a sign in her office with a quote on it that says, "It is not necessary for a crow to become an eagle." I think that's a very good quote. I think it was by Sitting Bull, but I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. A lot of times people with low self-esteem in their relationships will look for the exact right response from someone else. If they don't get that, then the person has failed the test and is not good enough for them, or whatever. Unfortunately, people with low self-esteem tend to be needy and pick needier people as friends so that they can feel better about themselves. People with low self-esteem try to feel whole through others. There are four main fears in people who have low self-esteem. There's the fear that their inadequacy or incompetence will be proven to them. They don't want any proof that they're incompetent or inadequate, so a lot of times they don't try anything. They're afraid of revealing their inadequacies to others and attracting a negative reaction. There's this expectation that they have to be perfect. A lot of times people expect other people to see things the way that they do, and when they're looking for the exact right response, they realize that they can't come up with the exact right response to what someone else is saying, and they feel like they'll attract a negative reaction if they can't think of exactly what to say. A lot of times people with low self-esteem fear losing what they have or being abandoned. A lot of times there's a fear of humiliation, devastation, and despair. There's a lot of fear of pain that goes on. A lot of times people with low self-esteem don't take healthy risks and do things that are healthy for them because they're afraid. There are some things that people do that wreck self-esteem. Having absolutes or overgeneralizations, black and white type of thinking is not good for your self-esteem. It tends to set you up to expect things that aren't realistic. People with there's a dualistic thinking, which is the black and white thinking, that things are either good or bad, when in truth most things are somewhere in between. Some things are bad, some things are good, but a lot of times things are in between. People with low self-esteem tend to have selective hearing. They tend to hear only what they want to hear. A lot of times people with low self-esteem will practice mind reading. They think they know what somebody else is going to say. They think they know what's on someone else's mind. They think other people should know what's on their mind without having to say anything. People with low self-esteem practice shoulds a lot. I should do this. I should do that. Other people should do this. Other people should do that. Shoulds are kind of a heavy thing. They should be used with caution because you can drop them on your foot. Very rarely is life what we expect it to be. People with low self-esteem blame themselves a lot for things that aren't their fault. There's a lot of guilt that goes on. People with low self-esteem have a lot of control fallacies. This is, they think that they can control other people, or they should control other people or situations, or that other people are controlling them, that they're not in charge of their life. It's not healthy. And then there's comparing yourself to others. You can't compare your insides to someone's outsides. People's outsides tend to look more together than people actually are. How do you fix it? First, you have to, as with any problem, you have to identify the problem. You have to become aware that there's a need to change. And then when you become aware of the problem, you expand your awareness. You become aware, you learn to see the forest for the trees. You begin to see how your behavior is affecting others, etc. You want to set goals and develop a plan, and I hope to get into more talks about self-esteem and some of the keys to building self-esteem, and I can help you set your goals and develop your plan. And then get feedback from people that you trust and are close to. You want to get honest and open feedback and encouragement from those you trust. It's important to build a good support system in life. I have about 13 keys for building self-esteem. The first one is to learn to operate your mind. Using your brain properly can be very helpful in building good self-esteem. You want to seek harmony. Learning to make peace is important in life. Loving others and receiving love. Having healthy expectations. Having an attitude of gratitude. Using prayer and meditation to get closer to your higher power or spirit. I call my higher power spirit, or love, or higher power. I probably will use higher power and spirit interchangeably throughout my talks. We need to learn to give and receive graciously. Being a giving person will bring things back to you, because things do come back to you. Learning to live in the moment, take risks. Learning to do good visualizations, coping with feelings. Learning to laugh and celebrate. We have to have happy times and good times to improve our self-esteem. Especially learning to laugh at yourself. That's a big key. And setting healthy boundaries. Setting healthy boundaries is important in life, and being assertive. Self-esteem needs to be reinforced in new ways as it becomes threatened by age. That's a quote by Bonnie Lou Fatio, an author of a book on self-esteem and aging that I used as a reference for this speech.